Welcome to One on One with Mitch Lafon, and joining me on this episode, it is Pretty Maids singer Ronnie Atkins. We talk about the band's new album, Kingmaker, his relationship with guitarist Ken Hammer, and a lot more. Before checking that out, please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. Instagram is Mitch_Lafon, Facebook One on One Mitch Lafon, and PayPal.me/Mitch Lafon should you care to support the podcast. And with that, here is the one, the only, singer for Pretty Maids, Ronnie Atkins. We are speaking with Pretty Maids singer Ronnie Atkins. The new album is Kingmaker, and it is absolutely a fantastic album. Good day, Ronnie. Pleasure to speak with you.
Hello, man. Hey, how you doing?
Good. And, let's just start with the new album, because there's so much in your history that I want to get to. Just sort of talk to me about putting this album together, and after all these years, you've been around since the early 80s. What sort of motivates you to keep going and keep finding that sound? Why not just tour on the catalog?
Well, basically because, the whole thing started out with you, when you were 10 years, you dreamed about making music, that people eventually would like, and go on the road and play it live in front of people, that motivation is still there. We're still motivated to do that. And, of course, I know, releasing a record these days, releasing a new album, because it doesn't sell a hell of a lot, because of the physical sales has dropped as much as they have. But that's still what drives us, to create some new music, and I feel that as long as you're capable of doing it, why not? Also, you can't just keep touring. I think people want to hear some new material. We could tour. We got a 35-year-old history, and we got a lot of albums in the back catalog. So of course, in principle, we could, but. It's more fun to go out and create some new stuff, So we decided to do this album like in the end of 2014. I think we started. Me and Kenny started, throwing a couple of ideas at each other, and did a few things in 2015. But basically, this album was pretty much written and recorded like a month or two prior to when we started recording it in the studio, like 1st of February. So it was like it's very fresh material, I gotta say. It's just like it's very much how Pretty Maids sound like in 2016.
As you've gone over this the 30+ year career, and you get to Kingmaker, do you think that do you have a freedom to sort of to experiment with the sound, or does your fan base really want Pretty Maids to have that sound?
First of all, I think the most important thing is that you satisfy yourself, that you're pleased with your material yourself. We're probably a bit more open-minded today. We try to stick, to the formula that we originally had, I guess, because that was very much based on the bands that we grew up with in the 70s and the early 80s. But these days we try to update ourselves a little bit, both musically, I guess, and sound-wise as well, to be, let's say, kind of relevant. And the last couple of years, I think we succeeded in doing that, but still, while we were still sticking to our roots musically, And, a good song is basically a good song, What we're doing today, some of the songs on Kingmaker, a couple of them is basically pop songs that we kind of produced into being hard rock or heavy songs, and that's the challenge really, and that's fun. We probably wouldn't have done that like 30 years ago. We're probably more. It's got to be heavy and stuff like that, But that said, we always had that melodic aspect of the band was always there since day one, and it's still there. A good song is a good song. It's a matter of a package, really,
Yeah.
Oh God, I feel like I'm repeating myself now. I've said that in so many interviews.
Right. Well, let's try to keep this interview original then. And I also want to talk about NORDIC Union, which you put out earlier this year too. Another masterpiece. But you mentioned influences, so let's talk influences. Kingmaker video, on the wall you've got pictures of Kiss. On the Spook CD you covered Hard Luck Woman. And on Future World, you had Eddie Kramer come in and produce it. So, first of all, just talk to me about what's the fascination with Kiss.
I just think that Kiss. I mean, speaking for me and Kenny, who are the old farts in the band, we both grew up with bands like Kiss. Definitely. I mean, I remember the first album I bought with Kiss was Destroyer, and to me, still that's a great album. It's just one of the great albums from my childhood. And Rock and Roll Over, Love Gone, that kind of stuff. And Kenny, the same thing. But we grew up with all these like 70s bands, like Deep Purple, Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. I mean, I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan. The first six Black Sabbath albums with Ozzy is probably some of the most important hard rock albums, heavy metal albums for me. Where like bands like Thin Lizzy is a huge influence on Ken. I love Thin Lizzy as well. So we grew up with all these 70s bands, and then came all the bands that came out of Deep Purple, Rainbow, Whitesnake, and the whole new wave of British heavy metal thing. That came along in around 80, 81.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of that's the bands that had a big impact on us.
They really did. And since you mentioned the new wave of British heavy metal, I'm just going to throw this out there, but Tygers of Pan Tang just released a new album that is phenomenal. So there you go. But
okay, yeah, haven't heard it. To say.
Oh, you're going to have to. It's very much worth checking out. But let's get back then to Future World. You hired Eddie Kramer as a producer, and it didn't end well. What was the sort of the concept going in when you reached out to Eddie? What were you expecting? Just sort of tell me about working with him.
I mean, I think we expected something else. I remember there was a band called Icon who had an album out called Night of the Crime at the time being, and we were pretty influenced by that album. We loved that band and stuff like that. And Eddie Kramer produced that. And for a band from Denmark, I mean, everybody, the record company as well, wanted us to have an American producer, and we checked out a few that wasn't available. So Eddie Kramer came up, and a pretty good CV on like Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and stuff like that, So that was quite impressive back then. But I mean, he was a very nice guy, But I think at the time being, for producing an '80s hard rock heavy metal band, I think he was a little over the hill, to be honest, I mean, and that's not said with disrespect, because he's done his things in his past, but it just didn't work out, we wanted something else, and so he was like, sacked, and we carried on our own, more or less, and had somebody else to mix the album. Right,
you had Flemming Rasmussen mix it.
Yeah, Flemming mixed some of the more heavy stuff on the album. For instance, like the Future World, the title song. And then we had Kevin Elson.
Right.
Then we flew to San Francisco or Berkeley and mixed it. And he mixed 4 songs. At the time being, he'd just done Europe and their Final Countdown album, and we were on the same record label, so they insisted that he should do it, so they could maybe have another Final Countdown. Unfortunately, it didn't go that well. But he did a great job on 3 or 4 songs, So really that was basically the 2 people that mixed the album, yeah.
So let me just ask you then about producers, because you said that he was sort of over the hill. And I look back in my record collection, and stuff from the 70s, if it has Bob Ezrin on it, it was great. And then in the 80s, if it's sort of Bob Rock, do producers sort of have an era and a time, and can you sort of lose the ears of what's fresh and exciting?
I guess they have, haven't they? I mean, a lot of the producers from the 80s and stuff, you don't really hear about them anymore. I think every time has every time has their top-notch producers, kind of, and well, maybe they'll be gone for a couple of years and then be back, like some bands does, It's difficult to say. I mean, but I think, I guess that's right. Every time has its own producers.
Right, in a sense, like when was the last time you heard of a Mutt Lange produced album, kind of thing, right?
I haven't heard about him for a long time, but exactly. I guess he's well. He's well. He's all right. I mean, financially. So
yeah.
No, I haven't heard much. But he was actually one of my. I mean, some of the stuff he's done in the past is absolutely awesome, and like Def Leppard was always a huge influence on me. Actually, I mean, Pyromania and Hysteria is some of the best albums that was done at all in the '80s. Talking about melodic rock. So, and he produced those albums. I mean, everybody that could get hold of him would absolutely love to, but he did very few things after all, and probably very expensive too.
Yeah, probably.
But he's done some great work, and also he's produced one of my all-time favorite albums, which is AC/DC's Back in Black. I mean, he's done a lot of great stuff. But I haven't actually heard from him for a while now. He's mostly doing country stuff, like in Nashville, I guess.
Yeah,
like
it's strange though how producers just have sort of an era or a decade, and then they just vanish. I mean, these are great names. Of course, you mentioned Rainbow, and of course, Future World had Graham Bonnet sing on it. Let me ask you then about the Danish connection and Flemming, because he also produced Syndecade and Scream.
Yeah, and Carpe Diem, actually.
Right, and of course Metallica. So let's talk about working with Flemming. What did he bring to the band? And was it sort of the Metallica connection that went to get it, or was it more of the Danish connection, or is it just like, no, we need a producer and he's a good one?
It was more like we need a producer and he's a good one. I mean, he was good, but first of all, he's a lovely guy. He's a great guy, But Flemming, and it worked fine when we worked. All the times we worked with him, it was really cool. But he's like the more engineer kind of producer, Some producers are not really engineers. He's not a musician himself, Flemming, For instance, if you actually, but it went well. It went well, and for the time being, anyway. Like today, we're working with a guy called Jacob Hansen, but he's more like a musician, and he's also an engineer, But I actually do prefer working with people who are either guitarists or singers themselves. And in the case of Flemming, he wasn't, but it worked fine, and there was a great chemistry in the studio, and he's absolutely a great guy. I still see him now and then, so it worked well. But he had his time back then as well, I guess,
Yeah, he really did. Let's look back at the band's history. You've been around since 1981. The European market and Japanese markets, from what I can tell, do exceptionally well for you. North America, where I am, has been a tad bit more difficult for you. What has been sort of the reason you think that has kept you from being a Def Leppard or a Bon Jovi over here?
Bad luck. I mean, no, seriously, coincidences, I guess. I mean, back in '87, we actually had. Well, I mean, listen. I mean, we were signed to the Danish Sony Music. If we would have been signed to New York directly or London or something like that, it probably would have been a different situation. But actually, back in '87, we were signed to do a European tour with Deep Purple and do the Monsters of Rock festivals here in Europe. At the same time, we had the chance to go out with Whitesnake in America. We were actually offered to go out with them for 3 weeks. If we had done that, but we couldn't do it because we had other obligations. But I mean, if we'd done that, things probably would have been different. Also, back then, we had managers interested in America, but they wanted us to move to America, but which we didn't want to do. I mean, it's always easy to look back and say, well, we should have done this and we should have done that. And there's probably a lot of things we should have done differently. That's probably why we never really toured America. And it's a shame. I would love to.
Yeah. Do you regret not having moved to L.A. and set up shop on the Sunset Strip, or is it, I don't know. It might have worked, might have not. Who knows?
You never know. I mean, you never really know. But I think it would have been easier, and the possibility would definitely have been a lot bigger if we'd done that back then. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, today I eventually still hope we'll be able to go and play some concerts in America. Absolutely. I mean, we just played the Pro Power Festival in Atlanta, and we did these Monsters of Rock cruises, but it's not really on American soil. But we'd love to do that one day, absolutely. Because I mean, I've never played. I played there with Avantasia this year, where we played like in Los Angeles, in New York, and Toronto. And it was an amazing crowd. It was an amazing audience, far beyond my expectations, to be honestly. So I'll definitely love to go there. And we also got tons of stuff, in our mailboxes and stuff like that from American fans, So we definitely have a following, and I could see it while I was there because there was a lot of people coming up with Pretty Mates records. I had like the whole collection and stuff like diehard fans, and the whole band would love to play in America, absolutely. So let's see, but it's very difficult. A lot of people ask us, why don't you play here and why don't you play in Australia and stuff like that? But I mean, financially, it's not possible. I mean, because it'll cost you a lot of money just to get a working permit, and it's so damn difficult, and I wish it wasn't. because
Yeah,
then we would be there.
and
Absolutely.
it's expensive for promoters too. I mean, I know a couple of promoters that want to bring the band over, but then you have to
Yeah.
factor in four flights plus road crew. So all of a sudden
Exactly.
you've got 10 flights, 10 rooms, and you know a $3,500 show, is now 25,000, and you can't make that money back on ticket
No.
sales.
So it's like it's just impossible. I just read an interview with Vivian Campbell actually talking about the Last in Line band, how difficult it was for them. I mean, they're based over there. I mean, it is tough when you have to put airfares and stuff on top, and get your visas and working permits and stuff like that. It's just. It can't happen. I mean, unless you get a very good offer. And as you said yourself, I mean, promoters can't come up with these offers. Simple as that. So, but I hope one day we'll be able to make some kind of a package tour with some other band or two other bands or something like that. That's probably the most reasonable to do, I guess. But let's see. There's no plans. I mean, we got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, but let's see what happens in 2017 or 18.
Maybe bundle it up with Avantasia. But before we get to Avantasia, Ken Hammer. He's been with you since the beginning.
Yeah.
First of all, what does Ken mean to you? What does he bring to you personally, professionally? Just talk to me about Ken and your relationship.
Well, we've been doing this. It started out, I think, pretty soon when we met for the first time, like 35 years ago. We had the same dream, had the same goals, and I guess we both had the kind of maybe the same egos, But first of all, we had the capability of writing songs together, So that way we could use each other, But later on, it turned. It's a friendship. I mean, we speak to each other several times a week still, and we both have the same kind of humor. And we're having a good time. It's a laugh, and. We can still, as long as we can still write some good music, we'll probably keep on doing it. I mean, as long as it's fun, and we're still having fun, Of course, we have we're like an old couple, right? I mean, 35 years is a long time, and we still have our arguments and stuff like that about certain things, But we're still getting along, and I'll say it's a good, strong relationship, actually.
Yeah, and a good working relationship. Was there any point in that 35 years where he looked at you or you looked at him and said, "That's it, I'm done, goodbye"?
Yeah, that probably was a couple. We said sometimes we had some arguments where we didn't speak to each other for 2 or 3 months. But it happens rarely. I mean, it's rarely. I think it was mostly in the younger days. I mean, now we're in the 50s. I mean, if you have a problem, we sit down and talk about it. And that's settled. It's not. But of course, you can't go through life without having arguments with the same person for 35 years. I've been married for 25, so I know what I'm talking about. I mean,
right.
So, there's not a big difference apart from the fact that me and Ken actually doesn't have sex together. But apart from that, it's a bit the same,
NORDIC UNION. It was a fantastic album. Was that sort of one and done, or will there be more NORDIC UNION coming?
Well, I don't know. I mean, basically, it was a suggestion from the record company, from Frontiers Records, and I just said yes. I mean, if it's good songs, and I wouldn't mind trying to do that because I thought it would be funny to do something else for a change, And so I just said if I'm not a part of the songwriting. And that'll be okay. Because I didn't want to mix things up with what I was doing with Pretty Maids, because I knew we were going to do a new album. So, I mean, that album turned out very well, and had a lot of great reviews and feedback. And I still got a lot of stuff from people that things. Why don't you go on the road? And are you going to do a new one? Actually, I don't know. It's definitely not unlikely, But I mean, it's got to fit in what I'm doing with Pretty Maids whatsoever. So there's absolutely a possibility, but nothing is 100.
When you do a project like that, does that cause Ken any issues, or does he say, hey, what are you doing here? We've got Pretty Maids, or is it like, hey, go have some fun?
Well, I mean, I think he was a little, I don't know, I'm not sure he was too happy about it. He thought it was awkward that I did something else. I mean, it's like an as I said, we're an old couple, you know. But I mean, on the other hand, it didn't really affect. Oh, I'm also doing the Avantasia thing. I don't know if if he thinks it's a great idea. What I do know is that when I do, whether I do Avantasia or Nordic Union, I also make every time my name is mentioned, it says Ronnie Atkins from Pretty Maids, and I know for a fact that at the concerts I see a lot of Avantasia T-shirts and stuff like that, and I also know from what I've read that people actually got into Pretty Maids because of Avantasia or Nordic Union. So I mean, it's an ad anyway for my own band, you know. But Pretty Maids is still my first priority. On the second hand, I mean, I'll be 52 in a couple of days, and I don't feel I should ask for permission to do whatever I do, because I do. If I got a good offer to do something and I find it interesting, I'll do it, you know, and I don't ask for permission. So,
right. Which you shouldn't. So let's talk Avantasia real quick. The Ghost Lights tour, Ghost Lights album. Talk to me about that project. You know, you did those shows in North America, the 3 shows. Is this sort of done too, or is Avantasia in your future as well?
Well, I think there is Avantasia in my future if they want me in, and again, if it fits into my schedule, why not? I mean, it's been a great adventure for me doing that, because the great thing about this is that, like, you know, in Pretty Maids, whether it's Nordic Union or Avantasia, but in Pretty Maids, I have a lot of responsibilities as you know, as the singer, as the front man, as the songwriter, and all the business side of it as well. You know, in these 2 other things, I'm basically a hired hand, you know, and I don't have these responsibilities. So that's some kind of a relief for me, and it's fun to do. And if people thought that I couldn't concentrate on Pretty Maids because I was doing these things, I've just proved them wrong, because we just did a great album with Kingmaker. I mean, it doesn't make a difference for me. It just gives me some fresh air, you know, kind of inspiration whatsoever. But I mean, the whole story is I was asked to do this Avantasia thing actually in '99. Tobias Summit called me. I don't know where he got my phone number from, but he called me. But back then, and asked me to participate in this the Metal Opera album, the first album they did. But I would never have done it, and I didn't know who he was or what Avantasia was or anything. So to make a long story or a short story long, no. Then I met him in 2012 on a cruise in the Caribbean. You know, this 70,000 tons of metal. And I spoke to him for the first time. And Toby is like the whole Avantasia concept. What he's using vocalists that had an impact on him, or from bands that he grew up with, you know. And so he just asked me to. He didn't ask me at the time, but later on I had a request if I would sing on a song, and I said, like, well, send me a song and I'll listen to it and see if I like it. And there was a song called "Invoke the Machine," and I liked that song, so I did that. Then later on, he asked me to do the Mystery of Time tour, and I did that, and it was a great experience because it was really nice people. We were like 32 people on the road, but no arguments with anyone, no egos, just like one big family. And it was the same thing with Ghost Lights, and so I really enjoyed that. So yeah, there's absolutely a possibility that I'll do it again, but it all depends. I'm not sure whether he wants me in. Let's see.
Oh, I'm sure he does. When you're working on albums like Ghost Light and Nordic Union, and you're seeing different production values and different song ideas brought in, do you take any of that back to Pretty Maids and go, "Hey, that would be kind of cool on the next"?
Not really, keep because it separate? I mean, no, it's very different from what we do in Pretty Maids. You know, Pretty Maids, we still do things the old-fashioned way, and I mean that positively, because we're together. You know, we do the pre-production, we record it together, we record all the basic tracks together and stuff like that. And but the other projects I'm doing, Avantasia, Nordic Union, whatever I'm doing, that's always on like I'm just getting an MP3 file and book some time in the studio and record it, and that's what I did actually. So very easy for me in the studio. Is like an hour from where I live. So I wasn't really a part of the production as such. Not or the songs. Okay. Yeah, I just get a file, and that's it.
So let me end with this today, because we've passed the 20-minute marks. Louder Than Ever was released a couple of years ago, 2014. You revisited some of your older songs or classic songs. Tell me about that experience, and looking back at some of your older material, you know, does it always meet your quality standards now, or do you think, wow, man, when we do this song, we need to tweak this and tweak that. How was it sort of revisiting those songs for you?
Oh, that wasn't as good as I thought it would be. First of all, the first idea about this Louder Than Ever thing was that actually, we wanted to do some acoustic stuff, some live recordings, some new recordings, and some re-recordings. But it all became too messy, and we couldn't figure out what and this and that, So we just ended up like writing 4 new songs for it, and then re-record some of the stuff from what I say the dark period, or maybe the period from the 95 up till 2002, I think, where there wasn't so much attention on the band back then. So we just thought that we'd give these songs another go. But it was a lot more difficult to get the right spirit and the right atmosphere into the songs. It was hard to make them as good as the originals, to be honest. That's how I felt. So I wouldn't do that again, not for an album anyway. Yeah. Maybe for one song or something like that. But that wasn't an experience I would do it again. But then we tried it, and it went pretty well. But I'd rather do new music. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's hard to capture the magic twice. I mean, that's what makes a song special. It's the vibe and the uniqueness and what you capture.
Exactly, especially if you think you've done a good performance on a song. I remember there was one song, that's a song called "With These Eyes," which is, I'm very happy about the original version, but I never thought the song had the chance it should have to get out to a big audience. So we decided to do that one, but I was very happy with the original recordings of it, both musically and vocally. So that one wasn't particularly tough to do again. I couldn't capture the right feelings and spirit as I felt that I did so many years before that. So that was weird. That was pretty weird.
Yeah, that was a strange experience. And you mentioned that the album was going to have some acoustic stuff. For fans listening to this who haven't checked out Striped by Pretty Maids from 1993. That is a brilliant album. Very fun.
Stripped is just an album consisting of some good songs, And the funny story about the album is that we actually did 5 songs for an album called Offside, which was like a bonus CD we released in '92. But then we wanted to get out of a record deal, and they said okay. And that Offside thing went pretty successful. So they said, if you write another 5-6 songs and do a full album, we are out of the deal. And so we did. But fortunately, writing those type of songs was never a problem for me and Kenny. And we have tons of that stuff on old recordings and stuff like that. That's never been used. So I guess it would be pretty easy to do a Strip Part 2 if that's what we wanted. But that would be new songs.
Can I vote for that? Can I raise my hand and say yes, please?
I'll count you in. Yeah, sure. Of course.
Yeah, I think Strip 2 would be very much welcomed from the fan base.
Well, the funny thing about it was that when we released it, people got very surprised because they didn't expect that, But it was very, very successful up here in Scandinavia, and especially in Denmark. But I think countries like Japan and stuff like that, what the fuck is this? I mean, what are those guys doing now? I still think it's a good album, though, but it's not a heavy metal album. And
no, but it's a fun album.
People expected that.
And I think also in 1993, the whole concept of Unplugged and MTV Unplugged, and it was sort of starting, and people sort of were confused by it. But now in 2016, people are like, oh yeah, that's what bands do now. They do the symphony album, the acoustic album, the live album. Yeah. I think it would be better received these days.
Maybe. But I mean, yeah. Well, let's see. We don't have any plans about that, though. But who knows? Who knows about the future?
Yes. Well, the future is now. It is check out Kingmaker. Ronnie, a great pleasure. As my mom always says, tack, right? We have to be Danish. Yes. There you go, tack. Being from the Danish connection as well. There you go. Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure speaking with you this morning.
It was a pleasure speaking to you too, man. Take care.
Well, hopefully we'll get you to North America on a tour or some shows. It's got to happen.
I hope so. That would be great. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with Ronnie Atkins, a singer for the band Pretty Maids. The new album is Kingmaker. It is going to make my top 10 of 2016 list for sure, so please check that out. While checking stuff out, yes, you know the drill. Check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON, one-on-one Mitch Lafon on Facebook, and paypal.me/Mitch Lafon should you care to support the podcast. And if you're into Instagram, it's Mitch_Lafon. Boy, that's a lot of plugging there, right there. Anyway, we're done. Thank you for listening. Please check back soon. There's always an episode. In fact, always 2 episodes a week. So check back often. Tell your friends. Post. Spread the news. Put me on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Thank you, folks. Have a good one. Bye for now.